everything's fine. And then you can just softly drift into your dreams. So, the story we're going to read today, and if you didn't watch the other videos, we're reading from the Treasury of North American Folktales. So, I got this book at my local used bookstore, and I'm really enjoying it. We've been reading all of the Paul Bunyan stories first, because I know those from being a kid. Okay, I don't know this one though. This one's new. This is Paul's Popcorn. Having gotten the water meandering around to make the soil moist, Paul figured he'd test the land out with popcorn. So he picked up a good, healthy-looking kernel, walked out to a likely-looking place that had been irrigated lately, and dug a hole about a foot deep with his middle finger. He couldn't use his forefinger or thumb, naturally, because he was holding the corn between them. Well, Paul had no more than started back to camp to get Ole to act as a witness, then there was some sort of sputtering up of brown dirt, and a corn stalk came shooting through. In no time at all, the corn was up to Paul's knee, and by the time he got back with Ole, the corn stalk had grown so much that the top was buried in a cloud. "Ole," says Paul, "climb up to the top of that baby and chop off the top so she won't grow no more." So Ole started shimmering up the stalk at a great rate, but the thing kept shooting up, and in a minute or so, Ole too was out of sight. It was a handsome cloud with cottony bumps and scallopy edges, but Ole said afterwards that being inside of it wasn't different from being inside any old cloud. "Nothing but fog," he said. "When you chop the top off, throw her down," Paul yelled. Ole's voice came booming down. "The top's above me," he said. "I can't get to the thing." Ole's big voice had something like the effect of thunder, and the cloud rained away from around him. But this new moisture made the stalk grow even taller and faster. "This won't do," Paul yelled. "Come down and we'll handle her some other way." "Can't come down either," Ole yelled in a minute. "Every time I go down 1 yard, this thing shoots up 3, and I'm losing ground. I'm getting pretty hungry, too." Paul yelled for Babe right then, and while he was waiting for Babe to come along, he used his shotgun to shoot up a few crullers, which he hoped, for the time being anyway, would keep Ole from starving to death. When Babe came along, Paul hurried with the beast over to Jim Hill's railroad, the Great Northern, which, by good luck, wasn't far away. Paul loaded Babe up with a pile of steel rails and then hurried back to the cornstalk with them. "I'll see if I can't choke off the moisture in this cornstalk," Paul said, and with that he started tying those rails together and then knotting them around the cornstalk. It worked, too. Soon the ears of corn away from the top stopped getting moisture and started to dry out. Then the hot sun hit them hard, and shortly after, the corn began to pop, making considerable noise, too. After a while, this popped corn came drifting down like so many snowballs. Babe, who'd lived through so much fierce weather, didn't do any more than shiver a little, but a big herd of cattle grazing nearby decided they were in a world-beaten blizzard and promptly froze to death. Meanwhile, growing in spite of those knotted steel rails the way it had, the cornstalk had been bitten into by the things and cut itself off Now it started to tumble, slow but sure. Ole rode it down to the ground, and just like a logger standing on a log in white water, and then at the right time he jumped off lightly and headed back for Paul, following along the cornstalk. When Ole got there, the owner of the cattle herd, who'd hurried over, was talking right up sassy to Paul. "Look what you did to my cattle, just when they were fat to market," he yelled. "You'll have to pay for them." "Of course I will," said Paul, and he settled for the cattle right in the spot, for Paul was always fair and square, regardless of the cost. "Hello, Ole," Paul said. "Glad to see you're back. I just bought me a herd of frozen cattle." "Goodness gracious," Ole said, "and with our camp so far from where the cattle are, if we ship them, they're likely to spoil." "Well, that won't do," said Paul. "We'll have to figure out a way to use the critters. Teddy Roosevelt wouldn't like it if we wasted all those natural resources. Let me think." After thinking for a while, Paul snapped his fingers. "I've got it," he said. "If the popcorn's frozen, then the popcorn can keep them frozen." With that, he strolled over to the railroad and called on the head man, Jim Hill, and Jim rented him a raft of boxcars. Then, with the help of Babe, Paul stuffed those boxcars with popcorn and animals. That way, the meat kept fine until it was delivered at Paul's camp. So, without knowing it at the time, Paul had gone and invented refrigerator cars. Just like that. Okay, the next one is very, very short. It's just this one page. Paul Bunyan takes care of mosquitoes. "Boys, did I ever tell you about the time I drove the Newbin way over to Paul Bunyan's camp on Big Manatee's Lake? Boys, I want to tell you that there are some dandy mosquitoes over in that swamp, even now, but the modern mosquitoes are nothing like their ancestors. Well, I was just pulling into Paul Bunyan's camp that day. I heard some terrible droning noise like one of these modern airplanes. Even Paul, big as he was, seemed excited and yelled at me to hurry to his office, so I knew something was wrong. Then Paul told me that some of the big mosquitoes were loose. He had trapped them several years ago because they were bothering his cattle. Paul told me that 2 mosquitoes were trying to kill his prize heifer. And they had the critter down and were trying to drag it off, he said, when along came a really big mosquito. The big mosquito had simply killed off the other 2, picked up the cow, and flew away. So Paul decided right then and there to put a campaign against them. He and his men trapped several of them in live traps, he said, and the rest got scared and flew away. But this day, when I came to visit Paul, some of the mosquitoes had broken loose. We had barred the doors when we heard the mosquitoes droning overhead. They were landing on the roof. I shook like a leaf, but Paul wasn't scared. Overhead, I heard a terrible cracking and looked to see sword-like weapons piercing the roof. Paul said they were mosquito stingers. So he grabbed his sledge and clenched those stingers like a caterpillar clenches a nail. The next day, he put 12 of his star lumberjacks to executing mosquitoes on that roof. He said he was through showing kindness to the mosquitoes. It didn't pay. They'd stab you in the back. I like these stories because they often end in puns. And puns make me happy. I think that was the last Paul Bunyan story. which won't be too hard. There's a lot of stories in this. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed our bedtime story, and I hope that you sleep well and have sweet dreams. Bye. Good night.